Okay, hello folks. Good morning to everyone listening in from the East Coast today, and a very good evening to those joining us from the Indian region. I want to thank everyone who's online today and welcome you to the Qruize's webinar Tools, Technologies and Frameworks to Navigate Your Software Architecture. So software architecture is the highest level of abstraction of a system. What kind of data storage is present, how modules interact with each other, what recovery systems need to be in place. So all of these, in essence, make software architecture the bigger picture. It involves the choice of frameworks, languages, scope, goals, and high-level methodologies. So what you're going to learn today is what problems you encounter with software that you use every day and why non-functional requirements are important. A little bit about software architecture, what exactly it is, why it's needed, and the components that go into it. So we'll also touch upon common pitfalls of architecting, for instance, architecture-driven versus requirements-driven or document-driven approach, and how to communicate this architecture across the developer network. So moving on, we'll also discuss the role of an architect in development, what he should be doing, and where an architect has to step in and intervene. So finally, we'll conclude with a real-life example, a case study, in fact, of Sybrant, one of our very first customers, who has derived a lot of value from Qruize's architecture re-engineering. So we have two speakers today who will talk about all the good stuff that I mentioned. One is Ezhil, Qruize's CEO and co-founder. Ezhil has over 14 years of experience in the ICT industry. His most recent role was that of director of the R&D wing of CSS Corp. He's known for his technical expertise in the cloud circles and has gradually risen as an opinion maker in cloud computing in India. The next speaker is going to be Shankar, President and COO of Sybrant. Shankar has led several multi-million-dollar projects at Fortune 500 clients, including AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, FedEx, UPS, and so on. As a solutions director at Microsoft, he handled $30 million of the company's speech revenue. So there are some housekeeping rules that everyone needs to be aware of today. All of the attendees, apart from the presenter and moderator, myself, are muted. So if you have any questions, please direct them to me and post your questions in the questions panel, and they will be presented to the presenter once the webinar concludes and the Q&A is in session. Also, whatever thoughts you have, general ideas, you can post it on the chat panel to everyone in the general audience as well. So we are recording the webinar and it will be available on the company's blog, as well as the link to the webinar, the recorded version will be provided to all of the attendees. So I'm going to hand over the baton to Ezhil, who's going to start off with the webinar.
Thank you, Sunanda, for the introduction. Good morning to everyone from the East Coast, and good evening, people from India. So before I could start on the software architecture, I would like to give you a brief about Qruize. Qruize is a research-driven technology consulting company with focus on cloud, mobility, and Internet of Things. Qruize primarily helps clients to crash the development times, primarily helping them to solve their software architecture problems, working together with them as an extended R&D team by building a custom solution frameworks as well for them. So before I could delve deeper into the software architecture, I have compiled a set of situations that we would have seen in the past, or that we would be seeing in our software development. Being the first, I'm sure at least once in a time, all of us would have visited a site that kind of loads slower, and 1 in 4 people are kind of abandon a web page that takes more than 4 seconds to load. So what it primarily translates is to kind of, if you capture the right expectation in terms of, loading your website, and if that can be translated into a proper, design, you should be able to, solve your, problem. So this is the first ever problem that, we people face day in, day out. And the second being, when we built our software systems, we kind of need to comply or be compatible with different devices. As we all, we started using desktop, laptops, and then, the mobile evolution, come into picture. And the mobile has brought in different technologies such as HTML5, Ajax, native apps, and different operating systems like Android, iOS, Windows Mobile, and things like that. So these increased number of growth, especially increased growth in the technology, has brought in different complexities to primarily be compatible with the systems that are coming up. So when we build a system, we would have actually coined in certain factors towards desktop or a laptop, or we would have actually forget about the rest of the system. So how best you can be compatible, right? So this is another problem that people faces day in, day out. When you actually build your system, you will primarily end up in some of the features that you may want to implement that kind of eat up your time. So what it means is when you want to be when you build a system, when you are primarily looking at features like having a social media interactions, and you want to actually build a large-scale index for your system. So such features will take a lot of time, and we as an architect or a designer, we should be very clear about how we'll have to build this, right? And these features can primarily eat up your time and end up in confusion if you really don't put your thoughts up front. So this is another type of problem that we are seeing across the industry when we actually work with our customers. And fourth being preparedness for the failure. So we build the system, we deploy it into the infrastructure, we use different cloud or a PaaS platform to deploy. But one thing we usually kind of forget is about to prepare for the failure. So what it means is the system may not be available for your end users all the time. And what exactly we can do to address these issues at the early stage itself. So these are other type of problem that we kind of come across. Another important challenge that we see currently is security aspects. So when we build our system, how secure it has to be. And in this world, when you use different technologies leaves certain security holes, and these security holes are kind of used by the hackers, and they gain access to the data. So how well you need to secure. And we've seen many sites becoming victims of the security holes that are left in the technology area. So how best you need to address them. And other important, the challenge that we see currently is being the business becoming quickly global. And what it means is you start building your platform for local, and suddenly you see a growth in your platform usage. And now you have to become global. So at that point in time, you will be looking at supporting a global audience by means of giving them the right internationalization support in terms of language, in terms of usage, and in terms of the way that they access your platform websites from your mobile devices and other means. So this is increasingly becoming a problem. So how best you can address. So these are some of the standard challenges that we've been seeing, right? So what could be the answer to it? And apart from this, when you build your system, you need to be flexible enough to ensure that you can actually accommodate any of the feature requests that you may come up with in the future, and how best I can extend myself so that I will be quickly able to adopt to these changes, and how best I can maintain my system. Can I reduce the time of maintenance, both in terms of adopting to new changes as well as to fix some of the bugs that might have cropped up during the development. And when it comes to interoperability, when your business grows, you need to automate with your partners, you need to automate with your other vendors in terms of integrating with their system. So how best I can make my system interoperable so that I can quickly adopt and automate the entire process. So these challenges and these factors needs to be addressed in a proper way. And to primarily solve all of these common issues that we have seen so far in our experience, we've used software architecture as the best tool to primarily solve this problem. So how best you can actually solve this problem is primarily based on the kind of non-functional requirements that you capture. Any good architecture is driven by the right non-functional requirements. So let's take a look at what is non-functional requirements. So before we could get on to the non-functional requirements, what exactly a software architecture is all about. So if you look at all of these problems that we have seen drive to only one factor, which is the user experience. So software architecture is all about delivering the best user experience that you can ever see. And to give you a technical definition of an architecture, software architecture is primarily a method of describing the technology solution. The description would comprise of both your functional as well as non-functional requirements. So what we are going to talk about here more emphasize on non-functional requirements, primarily because non-functional requirements drives your software architecture. So if you look at non-functional requirements can be classified into two different categories, one being runtime, other one being non-runtime. So a runtime is nothing but what is being delivered to the end user. A non-runtime is primarily focused towards the development team, or you should the requirements that you should be prepared before you could actually deliver to your customer. So runtime comprise of performance, scalability, availability, accessibility, and security. And non-runtime comprise of how flexible you can be, how extensible you can be, how best you need to put in the maintainability in your system, and how much you can be interoperable. You also need to consider the legal, especially the regulatory and compliant aspects in the area. I mean, in the place where you actually serve with your customer base, and the internationalization and localization will also follow to that. Some of the common pitfalls that we see, primarily the myths about an architect or an architecture. If you look at the software industry, design is a primary factor for any of the system to be delivered. Right? The right design can actually build a great software. We have seen some of these points that we have discussed here as a common myths. An architect or an architecture document only needs to deal with a high level, but in reality, it's not so. You should be able to capture to the detail, as much detail as possible, to ensure that your software architecture document is usable. And there's another myth about an architect is a kind of an isolated guy who need not actually collaborate with development team. But in our opinion, an architect needs to be a team player, and he should be able to collaborate well with the development team to ensure that he delivers a proper system to be used. An architect need not be hands-on, but in our experience, what we have seen, an architect needs to be a developer primarily. So he should be able to understand the pain points of developer, as well as he should be able to understand the need from the business stakeholders to ensure that he delivers the right system. And we all kind of very familiar with the Agile methodology. And there is a myth about Agile makes architecture redundant. It's not so. Even if you're following an Agile development and Agile methodology, you need to have the right architecture in place for your team to actually realize the value of the Agile methodology. Usage of UML is must in any software system that's been built, especially if your system is being developed using OOPS-based technology, such as Java, .NET, or even Python. Even PHP has a OOPS-oriented approach. So if you're using a OOPS-oriented approach, usage of UML is must. The other factors that are often should be considered, but which are ignored. When you build your architecture, you need to ensure that you capture the right assumptions, and your assumptions made is going to really impact when you architect your system. So the assumptions needs to be captured in detail enough, and these assumptions can be well clarified when you have your meetings with the stakeholders. And the other important aspect is the identifying the risk aspects that are involved. So any key risks that you actually come up with, you also need to have proper countermeasures. When you build your software, and if you are a developer or if you are an architect, I'm sure you would have known about all the factors that's listed here. Especially when it comes to coding standards, naming conventions, design patterns, or template for source code. All of these are kind of hygiene factors. But these hygiene factors are primarily neglected due to the reason of either a time that you don't have to primarily put in your project, or a developer is not well equipped with these standards. Whatever the means may be, but these factors are neglected. But these are primarily the factors that can help you to build the right system that you're looking at. And these are the factors that would help you to maintain your software properly. And an architecture needs to consider all of these factors and ensure we have the answers in the architecture document for this. Some of the other factors which should be there when you actually build your design. You need to have answers for how do you do code coverage, what are the different frameworks that you need to use for developing your unit test cases, what kind of static code analysis that you can use, because you may use different technologies to develop your platform. So an architecture needs to address all of these factors. And especially when it comes to a product, you need to ensure you have a proper build and release mechanism. And these are an essential component that needs to be captured within an architecture document. Of course, continuous integration is a best way to deliver build and release in an automated way. So there needs to be an option for documenting all of these factors. So now, when you look at an architect, what should be a role of an architect? As we leader, and he should be the one who can manage both functional and non-functional aspects of the platform. And any technology choices that he makes, he has to he or she has to keep in mind that the customers may have their own technology choices. So the preference should be given more towards the customer choices. Though you may find the right technology, which a customer's environment may not accept. So we have to consider the customer's preference. And an architect needs to ensure that he designs and he documents the architecture in a proper way so that he can explain this to the team. And he should always be available for the team to ensure they get clarified with any doubts that they may have to ensure delivering the right system. He is the one who is responsible for delivering the design that he's put in place. So he has to be governing the entire implementation, end-to-end implementation, to ensure that it is done in a proper way. Last but not the least, the architect should educate the team, the development team, to ensure that they are equipped to the choice of technologies. There may be times a team may not be really aware of what technology to be used, and they may not be aware of how to use those technologies. So an architect needs to ensure that either an architect or he has to bring in the right people to do the training for them. So when it comes to architecting the software right, there are certain basic principles needs to be followed. The first and foremost being these software problems are solved every day, day in, day out by different people. And there are certain standards that are evolved over a period of time. Standard design patterns, standard architecture design patterns will help to solve most of your 70 to 80% of your problems. And there are patterns that are available, things like SEDA, a staged event-driven architecture, which kind of reduces the complexities that are involved in building certain thread-based program to ensure that your system can be built without using threads. And patterns like MVC, model-driven, model view controller, SOA, which is a service-oriented approach, a message-oriented architecture. These are standard patterns that are already available, which needs to be considered when we design the system. And an architecture should enable agility when you build your software. So we need to ensure that we put the right controls in place, which will allow you to extend your system in the future. And when you actually architect, you should be able to demonstrate the non-functional requirements that are primarily kept. And finally, you need to primarily look at reusing the standard principles, and you don't need to really reinvent the wheel. So you need to equip yourself before you start being an architect for designing the system. A method of just a sec, there is some disruption. Yeah, sorry about it. A method of architecting a system. This is primarily inspired from RUP, and this is evolved from our experience so far. The basic fundamental factor for you to design a system, you need to have the right use cases or user stories, and you need to have the right wireframes in place, which kind of acts as an artifact when we really discuss with different stakeholders. And you should capture the non-functional requirements with the categories that we have looked at it. We have certain templates that you can use to capture the non-functional requirements, which we will be sharing after this presentation to you all. And once you have both your use cases or user stories and a non-functional requirement, you should be able to design the essence of the system. And these designs are comprised of four different views, which is a logical, system, process, and deployment. A logical view is primarily a block diagram which can depict how the system needs to interact, what are the different systems that it needs to be integrated, what kind of database that you may want to use, what kind of storage that you want to use, and things like that. A system view primarily translates your logical view into the actual technology. So if you represent a logical view as a database, a system view will say whether you're going to store it with MySQL or a SQL Server or a Postgres or an Oracle, and why you have to store with that database. So it will have artifacts that are relevant to the translation of your logical to a system. A process view primarily captures the workflows and the business processes that are involved. You would be using certain diagrams like an activity diagram or a sequence diagram from UML to depict or to capture the process need. And these process need can be directly translated to the code with the help of certain code generators as well. And the deployment view talks about how these system and processes are going to be deployed in an infrastructure. The infrastructure could be your local or a traditional infrastructure, or be it a cloud. You will have to depict how the deployment is going to happen. And these deployment will also talk about how best you are going to build your disaster recovery mechanism, and what are the facts that you have to put in place to ensure that your system is able to, your users are able to access your system 24/7. Once you build your architecture, you should be able to test your architecture. The way that you can test your architecture is either using some of the simulation techniques that are available, or you can start building certain proof of concepts. So these proof of concepts will pick up the crux of your system that you're building and ensure that you are able to demonstrate the architecture that you have put in place. And this will also ensure or remove certain gray areas that you may have or your stakeholders may have to ensure that they are able to see the results. And once you have sign off on the architecture, you need to build your developer guide, and this becomes a Bible for any developers who implements an architecture that's been put in place. And this is where an architect needs to ensure that the developer guide is made understand for the development team. Some of the tools which is frequently used while architecting the system. We use Envision app, which is primarily allows you to create UI mockups quickly, and you should be able to kind of design your UI screens pretty quickly and show it to your stakeholders that how your system is going to look like, what are the features that you're going to have. And from a design standpoint, especially building your diagrams, be it a block diagram or a UML diagram, you can either use Visio or Glyphy, which are primarily meant for this purpose. And to convert the diagrams into a code, you can use different code generators. And among whatever is available, Ezhil is one of the best tools which can convert your UML diagrams into a code. So your development team need not build a skeleton, rather they can actually get the code as a skeleton and start working on it. And when you start building your system, I'm sure there will be a need for an architect to intervene. So what are the common times that your architect needs to intervene when such situation arises? So primarily when he starts building the functional and non-functional, he should be the one who collects all of this, and he should be the one who documents, especially when the information is collected. And when a developer or a programmer spends more time in office, which is nothing but like the design is given, the requirements are clear, but still developers are struggling. So at the time, architect needs to intervene and see, is there a change that he has to make in order to ensure that the developers are able to perform quickly, or do they need any type of training to ensure that they can come up to the speed when it comes to delivery. The other factor is you started you have your requirements in place, you have design in place, and the first certain concerns. It could be on the functional or it could be on the non-functional side. So this is a point where he has to start looking at, he or she has to start looking at the design. And they have to spend time with the stakeholders to ensure that they correct upfront any of the mistakes that they would have made. The development team, when they are not able to really, address or cope up with the changes that are arising due to business need. This is another important factor because the system or a design that you put in place should enable people to, adopt changes quickly. So these are some of the common points where we have seen an architect kind of chip in and ensure that things are settled properly. So I think, given these factors, in today's session, where I could cover about what are the general problems that you see in the industry and how these problems can be addressed by capturing the right non-functional requirements, and how these non-functional requirements can be converted into an architecture by using a methodology. And some of the tools that are primarily used by us are listed. And what exactly a role for an architect, and how best, what are the different principles that you may need to use to design or architect a system. And of course, what are the points of interventions. So I could cover all of this for you in this session. And as Sunanda said in the beginning, we have one of our customers, Sybrant here. His name is Shankar. Shankar is the COO for Sybrant, and we both are, Qruize and Sybrant is working together in delivering different systems for Sybrant's customers. So he's going to take one of the case and explain to us. So I hand over this to Shankar, and thanks for listening to me so far.
Hello everyone. It is Shankar, Chief Operating Officer of Sybrant Technologies. Some of you guys might be wondering, for an architect webinar, why not a CTO or a delivery head present a case study? Instead, a business head does come on the call to present. And also that too, I'm neither a developer nor an architect, so might be looking at my profile and seeing why is this guy even here, right? So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes providing background about myself as well as Sybrant, so that when I move on to case studies, you would get a better idea of why I'm being called for this particular overview. Sybrant as such is a user experience company. What we mean by user experience is sometimes harder to explain to both our clients as well as partners. So I'll probably take a minute explaining what user experience is. So when you log on to either your banking service or your dashboard or a portal, what you see is the UI, user interface, right? So you go through a couple of transactions, you do certain things, that's the user interface. And at the end, once a transaction completes, you complete the transaction and you get out of it, right? You either send money or you pay a bill. At the end of it, you feel something. That's what user experience is. Either you are fine with the transaction, the way it went, or you feel, hey, it doesn't really help. The whole user experience was bad. So that's what our firm does. We help organizations, our clients, build a better user experience, whether it's on a website or a web application or a mobile site, mobile applications. It could be an internal portal or a dashboard or a CRM or ERP. It really doesn't matter. As long as it's a digital, online, across multiple medias, we try bringing better user experience to our end client. So that's what Sybrant does. And about myself, prior to Sybrant as well, I've run a large service provider for a company called Tell Me Networks in Bay Area, which was the largest speech platform in the world. We used to process more than 1 billion calls in a year, which meant handling 20 to 30 million calls per day for large service providers like AT&T, Sprint, Arasan, and also enterprise clients like FedEx and Fidelity. For that kind of a platform, we needed a solid architecture, and that was one of the reasons for me to always believe that when we take on a project, architecture is key because that helps a lot when we build. So that's the background about myself and Sybrant. So I'll move towards the case study as such. One of our clients based out of Silicon Valley was building a enterprise social networking platform which was internal for employees. I wouldn't be able to reveal the name of the client due to NDA, but I'll give you a high-level overview what they were planning to build as such. So they were planning to build an internal portal for employees where the employees could be a large number and they are across different regions and zones, right? And let's say you are able to find a particular answer or solution, and in future the same question pops up. Some other employee within the same organization who is not known to you or who is in a different location might have to do the same set of research and go through the same pain in doing that again. So what these startup was trying to do is trying to build an internal portal where the information is shared between all the employees in material, whether it's past issues or something about their current vertical or whatever. It's like a social networking within their company. So when someone has an issue, they can very well go there and find out something has happened in the past, or even if some particular news or something agile happening in the market, they will share it through this particular internal social network, and that's the high level behind this particular client. And when they came on board to us, as I said, we were a user experience company, right? So they came to us specifically building the user experience. But at the same time, it's not just user experience, right? We have to build the whole platform. And that's when we were looking out for architecture. And I strongly believe that always consider one niche area. So our niche area was just user experience. We never wanted to go behind architecture or anything else. So we wanted to partner with someone. And that's when we met with Qruize and Ezhil, and we gave this project to Ezhil and team, and they've done an amazing job. So I'm not going to go over the technical portions of what has been done, which pretty much Ezhil has covered, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer through the question session. I'm just going to address a couple of business side reasons why the particular architecture provided by Ezhil and team was pretty much useful for the whole project. So there are certain things which was really helpful. We did post-analysis with the client, and there was a certain point which came out really well from the client as well. One was the complete design was planned really well. So since the startup, right, the way it works is even though you might have an idea, as and when you go through the development, things change, you add functionalities and stuff and things. Since the architecture was planned really well, every time there was a change or update, we didn't have to do everything from scratch. We were able to add as such and move on. So what it helped us was it was able to assist in managing this complex application really in a smoother way rather than every time there was a change, getting into the team and then identifying what are the changes we need to do. It was a simple change that needs to have done since the base was done with architecture. All that needs to have done was a little bit of development here and there. And a couple of examples what I mean by able to manage easily was a lot of functions were able to reuse. The code was maintained in a better way. Overall, for the amount of lines of code that was written, the bugs filed were way too less. The impact analysis was pretty good. Every time there was a change, it helped us understand what exactly that needs to happen in order to change this rather than trying to find everything from scratch. Overall, I just want to close with this one point. As a business head, right, there are two key things that helped us with particular for this deal. One was the overall time taken for this project was less, and obviously since the time was reduced, the cost involved was also way too less. So it helped us able to keep the client. The client was completely happy with what we did, and he was even be able to reference for us with a couple of other prospective clients. Overall, for us, Sybrant, it helped significant, and post that we have worked with Qruize on 2 other projects. So we have done 3 projects with Qruize, and we have pitched in a 4th one together with them. And specifically for a project like this, a startup, right, architecture is even more key because the project is volatile, it keeps changing. So unless we had worked with Ezhil and team, we might have spent more time in doing stuff, the timeline might have extended, which could have impacted the cost, and therefore I don't know what would happen to the client. So I strongly believe that Ezhil's team had helped us with this. With that, one thing I want to add is we found Qruize and the team almost 2 years back. And as I said, we have closed 3 long-term projects with them, and we have pitched in a 4th one. What that means is we haven't went with any other partner in search of. After we did one project with them and the amount of accolades we got from the client, we have been continued working with them, and we have provided references. And even some of our clients who work with Qruize, we're willing to work with them directly for other projects as well. So with that, I will end the case studies, business case, and I'll have turn over to Sunanda.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Shankar. Thank you so much. So we have a couple of questions from our audience. So I'll start with the first one. The first question is, we run an online news portal which crashes periodically due to numerous database calls. I'm using a WordPress instance on Amazon Web Services. How do you think I can prevent this?
Okay, so the question is about there are frequent crashes and it has to be handled, you know, how can I prevent it? If you look at WordPress as a system, it is primarily built with different plugins. One second, it's mute. Yeah. So it is built with different plugins, and the plugins are primarily delivered by different third parties. So what it means is a plugin needs to be validated properly first to ensure that each plugin closes your database connections and ensure that your database is not really you know, clogged with different calls. That's one. And two, if you look at WordPress as a system, it doesn't come with a direct caching mechanism, and especially if you are going to, you know, serve to a large audience with the instance that you have, you need to ensure that you need to ensure that you put in good caching mechanism, be it a varnish, or maybe you can use different CDNs depending upon your need. So that kind of allows you to reduce the number of connections that goes to your database. That's two. And third one, especially since you have hosted on Amazon, Amazon gives you a good static web hosting platform as well. So you may need to consider how best you can push the content that's been cached by Varnish to the static hosting platform. There are tools and frameworks that are available that kind of allows you to achieve this. So maybe you can write to us and maybe we can provide more details on this at a later stage.
Okay, great. So the next question here is, so we're building a web application for a compliance process. We know for sure that we haven't designed it well, or rather for our liking. So we realize this whenever our customers ask for an extension of the functionality, which takes a lot of time for us to incorporate them. So can something be done through re-architecting, as we don't want to start from scratch and we have already spent months of work on it?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know, who this asked, but I think the fundamental factor is, as we said, we have to put the right design in place. So the right design can be put in place by looking at your existing code base. So if your code base already followed certain standard principles, re-architecting them could be easy, but if the code base is kind of not usable, then you may have to look at rebuilding the system. This needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, but there's no other option, because if the system that you already have do not allow you to extend it, then there's something that's drastically gone wrong. So maybe I think we can answer to this once we see the code base that you already have.
Okay. So the next question is, the architect is the backbone of the software. So how far can we be sure of the reliability of the larger system?
Okay. If you take an architect by himself may not be aware or may not be really good at each of the aspects with the system. So in this case, an architect needs to take help from different experts, and that's why you have experts, kind of an infrastructure expert or a legal expert or a Java expert or a .NET expert to ensure that he takes the help from the right experts. It may require to integrate with different third-party systems as well. So the fundamental point is he has to take help from different experts to ensure that he realizes the vision of the system that we're putting in place.
Okay, so we're inundated with a few more questions. So when we integrate with third-party applications, so first point, how does our application and the third-party application fit so snugly? Second point is, how do we decide which third-party app to use? And the third part of it is, there are too many third-party apps competing. How do you keep up with them?
If I understand the question right, you're trying to integrate with different third-party systems, and maybe the third-party system supports different frameworks, out of which one you have to choose. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the only answer is to look at the vendor-supported frameworks in the first place. If you don't find a vendor-supported frameworks, and if you are going to use a third-party framework that's been provided by open source or a freemium or a free source, then I think you need to evaluate by yourself. That's one. And you may find certain answers from the internet, but the best way to do is to do a proof of concept to ensure that you choose the right tool. And in some of the technology-based frameworks, we keep publishing about different frameworks and their usage. What is the best framework to be used for design patterns and things like that. When it comes to integrating with third-party systems, you may need to find out with a proof of concept, one. And two, if you go with a company like us, then they may have experience in working with the best framework of choice for integrating with such system. So in that case, you can take a help of consulting. So those are the only two options that we have.
Okay. So how will the architecture improve the application's performance?
Can you repeat the question?
How will the architecture be able to improve the application's performance?
It's a good question. So if you really look at it, the design that you're putting in place, one, you should be able to measure the performance by means of using simulation techniques. So what it means is every transaction that happens in a specific technology or a framework, there are standard metrics available. So these metrics can help you to figure out what the execution time it takes, especially from an end-to-end standpoint. So let's say you are building a web app or a web services app. So from the starting until the end, which may take data from a database and come back. Right? So there are certain standard metrics that are available, which helps you to look at in the flow what exactly the time it's going to take for me to return for a data size. Right? So these simulation techniques will allow you to see how it will perform the design that you have put in place, one. And two, if you want to be doubly sure about these metrics, you may take up the real crux of the system, I would say the heart of the system, right, that you're trying to build. You can take that up and implement a proof of concept with the framework that you build to ensure that whatever the results that you are looking at and whatever the results that are measured in using a simulation technique is what is being resulted out. So the best advice could be to ensure once you put up your framework to measure your performance, you do a proof of concept with the technology to ensure you get the right results.
Okay, so we have one more question, and we're closing the stage for questions. So we provide a multi-tenant hospital management system. The system is fairly stable and is used by hundreds of customers. However, we are currently sizing the hardware for a large opportunity in the Far East. They are a 1,000-bedded hospital. What should I look for in terms of availability or disaster recovery?
Okay, the availability and disaster recovery is a big area to be looked at. So especially when you're dealing with a customer, you need to look at how many locations that they serve, number one, and are they really present in different cities, and what are the critical systems that you already provide should be always available. What are the system failures that your customer can withstand? So you need to take a look at you need to take a stock of all this and ensure you design your disaster recovery plan in a way that they can actually withstand for failure. And especially when you're dealing with this, you need to ensure that your disaster recovery systems are put in places or in the locations where your customer do not do the business operations. And your primary site and the disaster recovery site should be kept in different data centers and different locations to ensure that they gain access not only to the data, they can also secure this information in case of any disaster that occurs to the primary site. And maybe if you need more details, then we can have a specific conversation in this regard. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar today. So like I mentioned in the beginning, the recorded session will be available on the website, as well as the link will be shared with all of the attendees. Thank you, Ezhil and Shankar, for patiently going through all of the details and answering the extremely detailed questions here. So we hope everyone can join us on a future session very soon also. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.